Welp, you found us again. This is Small Biz, Big Ideas. And it's Jim Moy with the Silver Fox and the best head of hair in small business. Look at that hair. Do you know what people would do for that hair? They would do a lot.
I
It's
know. It's crazy.
it's an impressive mane. See what I did there? Because I know
Maine,
you
I like that. There we go.
because I
Yeah,
know
that
because I know
works.
you because I know you like horses. So
Lions too.
well, the paw.
Triple
The paw.
entendre.
Ah,
Okay.
ah. It's Friday morning, and this is what you get on a Friday morning. You get a little
You
bit of
get you get a UVA grad walking down the staircase. Hey, what's up, Dad?
when you get us on a Friday morning, you're getting leftovers. I'm just telling you. But you know what? I want to
Oh
promise you.
no, not
I
leftovers.
want to
No, no,
promise
no.
you,
I'm ready to
ladies and gentlemen.
roll.
No, I want to promise you, ladies and gentlemen, our leftovers are better than the finest Michelin rated meals you could ever get. Why? Because these two guys, we don't know much, but we know small business.
Yeah.
And that's what we're here to talk about. Today, we actually do not have a guest. We wanted to dedicate this episode to talking about a report that was just released by Virginia state government. A little bit of context here. As you all know, CNBC released its rating of the best states. Well, it released a number of rankings last week, one of which is the best states in which to do business. Commonwealth of Virginia came in third after having slipped the year before to number four. So that is a positive development to have moved up one spot. I know that Governor Spanberger is committed and her staff is committed to trying to get back to number one, which is I think good news for anyone who is a business aficionado and anyone who's interested in business interest here in the Commonwealth. Now, that being said, every 5 years, the Commonwealth does what is called the Commonwealth of Virginia Disparity Study. And the Disparity Study is a study that comes out of the Department of Small Business and Supplier Diversity that's actually completed by an outside third party that looks at essentially how Virginia government um, utilizes certified small businesses um, in its kind of day-to-day business and how it spends money with those small businesses. Um, Very interesting finding. Um,
Very interesting.
so we're gonna jump into this thing because I think there's a lot going on here, and I don't think I am uh, wrong in saying that when you read this report, this gets into why, ladies and gentlemen, Charlie and I wanted to do this podcast. Um,
This is the very reason we wanted to do this podcast because there are so many facets, so many angles at small business, towards small business, with small business, that it was ripe for a podcast. I think when we started talking about this, we realized that sure, there were economic podcasts, there were broad reaching podcasts regarding business and business strategies, but I have really, maybe I haven't looked hard enough. I've looked though. I have not found one that was directly targeted at small businesses.
correct. And so, um, let's jump into this study a little bit. So, as we said, it's actually um, authored by technically by the Department of Small Business and Supplier Diversity. Um, like I said, it was completed by an outside entity for them. Uh, they analyze so over a 5 year period. So that's July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2024. They analyzed $27.1 billion of contracts and procurement um, that were uh, awarded on behalf of the Commonwealth of Virginia. And what they looked at was the percentage of those contract dollars that the Commonwealth spent with small and diverse businesses during that period.
Can you for the listeners, Jim, and you've had a lot more governmental experience with this. Can you define, first of all, small and diverse businesses?
So the way it is defined here in the report is it is any business that qualifies to become a certified small woman or minority owned business here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. So there is a certification, for those who don't know, there is a certification process that you go through in order to actually uh, to achieve that certification. It is not, it's a easy process to go through, but it is not a short process. On average, it takes about 6 months to do that. That process is managed by the Department of Small Business and Supplier Diversity. So whenever this study looks at small business utilization, and whenever you hear, at least in Virginia state government talk about how it utilizes its funds with small businesses, it is a laser focus on those small businesses that have gone through what is called SWAM, so that small woman and minority owned business certification process. Right.
Right.
So this is not just Joe's random taco truck. It's not Bob's HVAC. If you have to be SWAM certified, at least in theory, in order to qualify to get in on these state contracts and procurement actions.
Could you also tell us who BBC Research and Consulting is? I I don't have experience with these large consulting firms. Do you know them?
I do not. I do not.
Okay.
I am not. I
All
am
right.
not familiar with them. I believe that they are very much a known quantity within state government, but I am not familiar with them.
Okay. All right.
One other quick deviation. The small woman and minority-owned businesses, there is also a special designation for service disabled veteran businesses as well.
Right.
So very important to know that a lot of people think that the whole certification game is a DE&I program. That could be a show into itself. We're not going to get into that today, but
No.
but it is important to know that one of the specifically called out designations in the small business certification process is service disabled veteran. Okay, so um, what did they found many things. Let me, as we used to say when I was in the defense industry, we used to call it the bluff, the bottom line up front. Uh, the bottom line up front is that the government is not doing a good job of spending its money with small businesses. Full stop. That it could do a much better job of um, of doing that. So I'm trying to figure out which statistic to actually start with. So one of the things they found was uh, that there was a possibility that in all of their kind of state projects, that 88.5% of all of their state project dollars were eligible to go to um,
Wham
to these
certified.
certified to these certified small businesses
Right.
based on the availability of those businesses. So now, what are we saying? That means that only what 11.5% of all of their project dollars were dollars that for whatever reason would not be available through a contract or procurement for small businesses to bid on. It doesn't mean they got it. It means that they would be eligible to
Qualified.
go through, right, qualified to bid on those contracts or those procurements. The next thing they found was that 59% of they call it relevant project dollars, which they don't define what that means. 59% of relevant project dollars went to these small businesses. Now, um, it's an important thing to know when you're the people who've worked in government understand this, and people who are vendors of the government know this very well. That you know, in a year, if you have a universe of, let's say, $1 billion that you can spend, there's somebody buying pencils, right? At $2 a box. Equally, there's someone repaving a road for $10 million. For
Right.
purposes of a study like this, they're all the same. But understand, in reality, they're not the same. If you're the small business that's getting the $2 a box pencil contract, okay, it's a contract. You're doing business with the government, but you understand it is radically different than someone who is doing capital outlay on an infrastructure project, these massive IT projects where you're
Right.
updating platforms and things like that. So understand that there is movement beneath the surface on all of this. So not all procurements are the same. And as we kind of talk through some of these statistics, you have to keep that in mind, and it'll make sense a little more what we're saying as we kind of get further
This is
into this.
this is your nerd alert, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, but the nerd alert is important to recognize because while we talk about broad sweeping things on this show, we also know that details, like in any business, matter more importantly. I even hate to hesitate to say it, but it's more important because legislation, laws are involved when you're dealing with federal and state contracts and local contracts. So you have to be precise. And we had that conversation with a recent guest on the show who had dealt with Army contracts, right? Who was in charge of the Army's small business contract. I found the report bases, what they laid out, what they studied, the front, to be eye-opening to say the least. Um, the availability study was the availability section to me was jaw-dropping to a certain extent, and the fact that it laid out exactly what minority-owned businesses, micro businesses made up, what percentages of business that were ready to do business, but not doing business with the Commonwealth. Am I correct in saying that?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
That's
So
where the disparity stuff really hit home for me.
yes. So for folks who don't, uh, I'm gonna do a gross oversimplification
Please do.
to explain
Yeah.
kind of how government procurement works. So let's say you've got five agencies, right? And those five agencies will procure goods or services usually one of two ways. Either there's a central authority that buys for all of them, or they buy individually. Okay. And regardless of what model you use, either this centralized process or you buy independently, there's an expectation in the state of Virginia that where possible, you will try to utilize these certified small businesses. And uh, again, remember what I said, you're buying everything for the government. You're buying pencils, pens, you're leasing cars, you're buying all
Warehouses,
types of warehouses, you're buying all types of services, janitorial services,
ABC
HVAC.
stores.
Yeah, you're leasing space. They're everything. The government is in the buying business, and it's not just Virginia government. All governments are in the
Right,
buying business, right?
right.
So they have this pool of money. Okay, so the other thing you have to know in that in all these purchases and the other thing is what is the difference in a contract and a procurement? Okay, a procurement is usually a smaller buy, and it's usually you're buying goods, right? So
Pencils and pens.
your pencils, pens, office supplies, things like that, even up to stuff like copiers, printers, those are generally kind of considered procurements and usually of lower dollars. When you get into contracts, that's when you get into more of like professional services or even non-professional services, but non-professional services that cost real money. So you're getting a maintenance contract on an HVAC system for the Patrick Henry building. That's a contract. That is not a procurement, right? So you've got all these different types of buys and purchases that are going on. For those of you who don't know much about government procurement, let me make it super simple for you. It doesn't matter. Know that the government is a deep pocket spending money. Look at it like that. Doesn't matter how they spend the money that way. No, it's procurement. Oh, it's kind of irrelevant. They're a deep pocket that spends money. You have small businesses of all types, thousands, tens of thousands of them throughout the state who can provide those services. There you go, right? The vehicles that they use to do it somewhat are I don't want to call it a distraction because they are there for specific legal purposes to do that. But for purposes of this conversation, it's irrelevant. What's most important to know is they got a lot of money to spend and they seem to be missing the boat on being able to spend as much of that money as possible, as rationally possible with small businesses. So, the thing I found to be most interesting in this report was what they called the disparity analysis. So, in this disparity analysis, I'm going to just read quickly something they wrote in the report. The crux of the disparity study was to assess whether any disparities exist between the participation and availability of small and diverse businesses for Commonwealth work. A substantial disparity between participation and availability, that is, a disparity index of less than 80 cents, indicates that the group is considered to have been substantially underutilized relative to its availability. Many courts have considered substantial disparities as inferences of discrimination against particular business groups, and they often serve as justification for organizations to use relatively aggressive measures. Okay, so essentially what they're saying is you've got businesses out here who can do the work, but but you're not using them. Full stop.
Right.
You're not using them to the fullest capability. So um, when they actually ran the numbers, um, what they came up with was a small business disparity index of 67 cents for all relevant contracts and procurement state agencies awarded during the study period, which means that uh, they awarded 67 cents to on average to small businesses for every $1 one might expect state agencies to award to those businesses. That's a very important distinction. Let me repeat that based on a dollar, if you think that full dollar could go to a small business, they only awarded 67 cents of that dollar to a small business. That in and of itself is problematic because, while when you start thinking about small numbers like 67 cents versus a dollar, you're like, well, what difference does it make? Well, it's remember how I started part of this conversation.
67 cents is $670,000 out of $1 million.
Correct. And that is, oh, we awarded all the office supply contracts to small businesses, but the major IT platform upgrades, you didn't award that to a small business. All the infrastructure awards, you didn't award any of those to small businesses, right? So that's why I started the conversation with understand that not all procurements are the same. So you have a lot of small businesses. I learned this when I was in DC government. You have a lot of small businesses that will have 100 different, may get 100 awards a year, which on paper you would think, my God, you got 100 different procurements awarded to you this year, right? But in getting that 100 awarded to you this year, you did not. Um, they were it totaled $10,000. Meanwhile, a large business comes through and gets awarded a contract that's $5 million, and they did one contract,
Right.
one shot, and they got this money. So not all things are
They
equal.
provided a service for the money.
Yeah, it wasn't like someone just gave it to them, but the point
Right.
being that and this has traditionally been a problem in all government procurement as it relates to small business, in that you give small businesses really small things, and then big companies tend to get the big juicy projects, which is, I mean,
Is that
listen.
because, but let's be honest. Is that because a larger corporation can handle the breadth, the width, the scale of a larger project? Now, I would argue no. There are small businesses being defined as 500 employees or less, or fewer, I should say. We like grammar on this show. That that there are businesses out there, 500 employees or fewer, who could handle these larger projects. But my argument is they don't know. And this report, in and of itself, does not prove the point I've been trying to make for months now, but well, actually years. But it does go to the point that we are not doing a good job. We're not doing the best job we can building the ecosystem out that, one, allows people to know about the opportunities, two, provides those opportunities in such a way that they are in line with the laws that are stated forth in the Commonwealth of Virginia's codes, and three, we could do a much better job building out the infrastructure that will allow for not 67 cents per dollar, but 85, 90, 95 cents per dollar. And you've got, again, I come at this from a studying it standpoint. You come at this from a having done it standpoint, right? I mean, I've been in the private sector. You have been in the public sector, right? You've been in the seat doing these things. Am I wrong in saying we could at least, with a good plan, increase this to 85 cents per
Yes,
hundred?
yes. And I will tell you a couple of quick things. Number one, you asked the question, can more small businesses do these things? Absolutely, they could, right? Um, but to also be fair, there are some things, depending on what it is, you would be hard pressed to find a small business that can do it, right? So, for instance, even though it's going to sound like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, tech platforms. You may have some of these very capital intensive capital or tech platform update things that you want to do that only a large business can do that. Some of these infrastructure projects, you're talking tens of millions of dollars, and the amount of human capital you have to have in order to even bid on a project to redo a highway, a bypass,
A bridge.
trains, bridges, right?
Right.
You're a large company. You don't have a small company can't even, maybe a small company could be one of the literally 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 subcontractors, but you have to have a big boy step in and do that, right? To be able, and they have to have the experience to do it. And usually small businesses don't have that level of experience. Even taking those types of contracts aside, because those are not your everyday contracts, right? Those are the needle in the haystacks. Those are the lottery ticket contracts. And there are, a certain number of those every year that exist in any state government. But everything else beneath that, you you really should be laser focused on trying to get small businesses to do it. And let's go back to those big contracts. There should be screws put to the large businesses saying, okay, you're going to get this big capital infrastructure project. Now, how many certified small businesses are going to support you on it? Because you can't do it. I mean, no big company could do it on its own. They're going to have subcontractors to help them do a lot of things. All right. So you're going to commit to using a certain number of certified small businesses in order to do that, right?
Right.
And you make that part of the proposal process to show, hey, I've got 15, 20 SWAM certified businesses ready to rock and roll if you award me, this bridge project. So, you know, there's always a belief that, hey, the only way small businesses can win is if they win the contract. And I'm going to use not an inartful term, use a term of art, as a prime contractor, meaning the government directly awards that contract to the Charlie small business, right? Sometimes there are lots of small businesses that make their living off not being the direct awardee of the government. They make their whole business off being a subcontractor to the direct awardee because they have a specialty that they do. They provide that special thing to a much larger company, and the much larger company has the bandwidth to go out and win all these contracts. And and they have whatever relationship they have with this small business, and the small business is like, yep, I'm gonna keep doing that one little thing for you. And it's a great symbiotic relationship. So that happens a lot, and it's a perfectly good model. There are a lot of small businesses that make a lot of money doing that. So it doesn't always have to be about being the direct awardee of the government. And that's the only thing I would say about the disparity study that's probably a little misleading. So those dollars that did not go to small businesses, that clearly obviously went to large businesses, were there any subcontract opportunities for small businesses of those dollars? Because I can almost guarantee you that some percentage of that money did ultimately probably end up in the hands of a small business. But when you talk about disparity, it can't just always be about the direct award. Because if you get the money indirectly as a subcontractor, that's a win too. Money is money is money. Work is work is work. In an ideal world, yes, you do want to build businesses that are direct awardees, but sometimes it's also just not possible.
Minority-owned businesses considered together exhibited a disparity index of 46 cents for all relevant contracts and procurements state agencies awarded during the study period. And then it breaks it out. Asian-owned studies, disparity index of 79 cents. Black-owned businesses, disparity index of 16 cents. Hispanic-owned businesses, disparity index of 24 cents. And Native American-owned businesses, disparity index of 24 cents, exhibited substantial disparities for state agency work. White woman-owned businesses exhibited a substantial disparity index of, I'm sorry for the dog barking, folks, just got to get over it.
Even the dog,
30,
even the dog's not happy.
well, white woman-owned businesses exhibited a substantial disparity of 30 cents for all relevant contracts and procurements. So they included contracts and procurements in this study. And I think the reason I brought this up with 15 minutes to go or 10 minutes to go is that this was a wide-ranging study, and I'll go back to what I said earlier, that argues for a better ecosystem that the state can build out with partners like small businesses, banking industry, CDFIs. Everybody that's involved has got to get involved now and right now to correct the ills that this study lays out. Only a coordinated effort will fix this issue. Now, folks, we were only number 3 this year. We were number 4 last year. I am not in any means, in any regard, castigating anybody here. I'm just saying we can do better. If you look one state to the north, they're in a whole world of trouble up there, right? Maryland came in 46th in that CNBC study. But that provides an opportunity that I've been talking about since the Northam administration, where it became clear to me that we could go and recruit businesses from other states. Isn't it funny, Jim? I thought about this in preparing for this podcast. Isn't it funny that if you go Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, you go 46th, 3rd, number 1?
Very interesting that the states that do the best in that CNBC poll are southern states. Now,
Why do you
again,
think that is?
well, I think it gets into we could do a whole episode on it, but some of that goes to taxation and how taxation is handled. Taxation in southern states, typically red states, handled very differently than blue states. Um, and there are arguments both ways, right? Um, the regulatory schemes in those states, in red states versus blue states, very different. Maryland, very much a blue state. Virginia, for regulatory purposes, closer to a red state, even though we're very much a purple state, but it's closer to a red state for regulatory purposes. For
Because
tax,
it's a more centrist political climate here.
yeah, I mean, even though I would say
I would argue.
Yeah, as a former Marylander, I would say shockingly, Maryland is very centrist. Also, it's not necessarily built that way, but it's fairly centrist because you have you have some very conservative. The vast majority of the state is very conservative. You have Baltimore, you have Prince George's County, you have Montgomery County. That's where all your population is. Outside of that, the rest of that is pretty conservative. All right. So so I think that's what the driver is, right? The further south you go, because if you look at some of the other ones, my birth state, Texas, very highly rated. Why? They don't regulate anything. It's the wide open West, right?
Well,
Well, you want to come here and burn oil and burn a hole in the ozone layer? Sure.
let it rip, dude.
Right. You know, you bringing jobs with you, we'll do it, right? And so I think it's worth noting. I'm just going to put this out there again. I think we literally could do a whole show on this, and it would be great maybe if we ever got somebody from CNBC who could actually chop it up with us about this. I believe both sides get it wrong. There's a sweet spot that exists in all of this. And clamping down business is not the right answer because it creates an environment where people can't win. Equally, you can't just have a free for all where people can do whatever they want to do. I think it's the hard work that has to be done. It's looking at what makes sense situation to situation, industry to industry, and then building consensus to get you there. But just thinking that there's one way to get there is a failed view of how you build a business friendly, consumer friendly, worker friendly environment. And let me be clear about something. Jim Moy is not running for any political office when he says what he's about to say. You have to have all three of those legs. You can't have a business friendly environment that is not friendly to your consumers and is not friendly to your employees. Equally, it can't be too out of whack for the other two as well. They have to be in harmony. And if
Well, and this goes. This is listen, folks. I use the word ecosystem over and over in this discussion because not because it's a cute buzzword, which by the way, it's become. I'm using it in its literal, with its as a literally defined term, and I'm inviting people from all sectors to be involved in building the new ecosystem that needs to be built. You talk about a three-legged stool, I'm talking about a grander long-range project that says, how do we address these issues? CDFIs, how do we address these issues? I mean, both you and I went to the governor's listening tour on economic development throughout the Commonwealth. You went to the Charlottesville districts one. I went to the Petersburg districts one. And I'll tell you what I heard. I heard folks from BDP. I heard people from the governor's office. I heard small business people. I heard CDFI people, and they were only in my group. There were 200 people at that conference, and we were broken out into small groups. But the ever present theme through each table was it's not bad, but it could be a lot better. And I think this is how we do it. And almost each group said it had to be a concerted effort with diverse parties involved in creating what I like to refer to as ecosystem. Some people called it ecosystem. Some people called it a new way of doing business with small business. But this wasn't just small business only, right? This was business generally, economic development generally. And there were some economic development directors there. Now, look, a lot of the conversation revolved around money. Money, 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 right? Money, 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 money. But everything we're talking about on this podcast comes back to small business and how do we get those dollars into the hands of the people that have the idea, the pencils that are readily available, the pens that are readily available. How do we bring them in to the process that allows them to do business with the Commonwealth, the state, in a way that is beneficial to the region they're in and the state generally? Am I off
No,
talking
no,
about this?
no, no. I think you're right on, but I think you're gonna you know a word I'm getting ready to use. It's engagement. And that's and part and no matter what model you use, no matter what ideas come out of it, it flows from a simple process. You have to engage. You have to engage. So the government has to have a way of engaging with small business where they're having those conversations on the ground. What's going on? How can we as the government better support you, right? And because what ends up happening is bubble thinking. I think I know what's going on, so I'm going to do a thing thinking I know what's going to help you, but it doesn't help at all. It hurts you
It's
more
it's
than it
not a
helps.
coordinated, it's not a coordinated
Right.
attack on the problem. It's a issue by issue relationship with the problem that one person, two people try to attack rather than this. I promise this is the last time I'm going to use this word. This new ecosystem that needs to be built out can attack in a holistic fashion.
I will give you an example of how I do believe currently Virginia has an ecosystem model that works very well. The Virginia Economic Development Partnership. It's called those in the know call it VDP.
Very
VDP,
successful.
very successful. It is a well coordinated agency that literally has built out this ecosystem. By the way, not just in Virginia, they actually have international offices
Right.
where they're trying to coax, cajole businesses to move from other places or open up branch offices. Here in Virginia, that's how you build an ecosystem, right? That's how you engage. You have to put money and people behind engagement. And I
On
think
the
it,
ground.
right, you've got to go to the lowest levels and you've got to engage with people. And you've got to engage. And as complicated as that may sound, I personally do not believe it's that complicated because you have things like business chambers that already have those relationships, right? They can help introduce you to those people. You have, economic development authorities in individual counties that already have those relationships that can help introduce you out to those businesses. But
But if
that's
the
what it
state isn't
takes.
coordinating with the local EDAs, then there's the disconnect. If the
Right.
state isn't coordinating with the local CDFIs, the disconnect. So what I'm proposing, having read this, not proposing, but what I wonder is why we are not creating circuits, for lack of a better term, where we are connecting the CDFI to the state agency to the borrower.
And I think you
or
and
the other
I,
way around, right? The borrower to the CDFI to the state agency,
right.
and then create a closed loop that says we're going to have a successful moment here because of this closed loop, and create an an interstices of these closed loops becomes a living, breathing organism that supports small business.
I think I have you've heard me say this before. I've never used this exact term since we started this show, but growing up in Texas, I grew up in a very rural, highly agricultural area, and we had an extension agent. The extension agent model in America was wildly, wildly successful for
Sure.
agriculture. We need to have an extension agent model for small business. Every
And
single county should have no less than, I say, a person, we'll keep it simple for now, have on a small business agent that is the touch point for the electeds in that county, the touch point for the businesses, for business organizations, for everything small business in that
for
agency.
people
And
who
they
are
need to have,
trying to start businesses.
right, they need to have a physical presence in every single county. And what you and I boldly agree on is use your community college system to help you with that because they already have a physical presence in most counties in the Commonwealth,
I
right?
made that argument in my white paper when we did transition.
Yeah,
Yeah, folks, I'm gonna. This just came to me actually. For those of you who are still here and aren't asleep, going, "Why is this? Why did I turn this on?" Um, there is a wildly popular series on Amazon Prime featuring a former, well, actually still an auto reporter, Jeremy Clarkson, who was part of a wildly famous BBC and then Amazon series about cars. And he started a show called Clarkson's Farm. And one of the most important pieces in that puzzle is Charlie. And Charlie is the British agricultural extension agent that helps Jeremy Clarkson decide what to plant where and why it's not working. And that 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 model applied to small business would be a game changer, in my
absolutely.
estimation.
Absolutely. And I think that that goes to the engagement piece that you know for all the technology we have in the world now and how people can communicate, nothing, absolutely nothing beats, one-on-one conversation. And when someone is trying to make hard decisions about, it's like when we had Jacob Radio, right? Somebody like Jacob who's trying to, poor guy gets laid off and he's trying to figure out, is this the time? Right? If I make this leap, what are my options for building my business? There is he could go. He's guys like Jacob, super smart guys, right? They can go online, they can read a million, billion, zillion things. Nothing beats being able to have a conversation with somebody who
Right.
says,
You
"Hey,
can do all the
you're
SWOT analysis you want, but until you sit down with somebody who can help you, mentor you, explain to you how it really works, not the theory, how it really works, then you'll be able to put into practice those things that you're able to do given that conversation. There are going to be things you can do, there are going to be things you cannot do.
right,
There are going to be things you have the bandwidth for, and there are going to be things you don't have the bandwidth for. You got to be able to figure those out. But how are you going to be able to figure those out? You can go all the websites you want. You can use chat. You can use Claude. But until you sit down with the person who has the knowledge, who has the experience, and says, you can do this, you can do that, or you can do this, or you can do two of those things and leave one alone. And here's why I think you should, because they've been through it. I mean, I hate to say this, but I know we live in a digital world, but this is a great argument to going back to an analog system to create success.
Well, all the digital in the world doesn't undo the fact that it's an analog process, right? That at the end of the day, you could throw all the variables in the cloud and say, tell me whether this is a good idea to do a thing. And it'll come back and say, you should not do that thing. And you could still go do it and be wildly successful
Right.
because there's nuance to all of this. And having an extension agent who can say, here are the resources available from your government, not just your state government, but all your local entities around here. And by the way, you've got your business chambers. Have you talked to your business chambers? They can help you with this, that. Someone who can help because the government has a vested interest in every single small business starting up and those businesses being successful because why? They're going to get tax money off of all of them. Number two, it's the backbone that hires most people. So the government has an interest in ensuring that small businesses are up and running and healthy. People always focus on the big, sexy businesses, the big defense contractors, the tech companies. They look at all of that.
Lego.
Right. That's not what drives your economy. Small
No.
businesses are what drive your economy.
Well, if you look at you just brought up a very interesting point, taxes, right? Um, Boy, we know governments love taxes because they're able to fund projects, and projects beget employment. But local governments should be reading these reports as well and saying why and how can we help.
Right.
I mean, I'm sure city council people are not reading these reports and
Prob
wondering how they can get in the game.
right. Probably don't even know that they exist. Right. Because
I
it's
didn't
not, it's
say
not
that.
all,
Yeah, you're right.
yeah, probably, not being, it's not being properly funneled through the public. So,
I know we're getting ready to close up here. I just want to say one thing that's very important for both of us, I think. We're not casting aspersions on anyone or anything because this happened. There was a 2020 report and now there's a 2025 report done by the same entity. All
yep.
right. What we're doing here this morning, or whenever you're listening or watching, is trying to cast a light on problems that are systemic, endemic, that can be fixed. This is not a blue, red, Dem, Republican thing. This is a success thing that is driving both of us, that has driven both of us since we met on transition. So I just wanted to make sure it's sort of a notice that we're we're certainly not attacking anyone or anything. What we're saying is the facts are the facts. Now, how do we get these problems solved? Because in the end, that is government's job, solving problems. That is why the legislature is in session each year, is to solve the problems of the people. If there is an injustice, if there is if there is a correction that needs to be made in any facet of your life, that's why there are city councils. That's why there's the state legislature. In fact, some would even argue that's why there's the Congress. Although, in my personal opinion, you'd have a hard time making that point. Anyway, I've enjoyed this.
Uh,
I know that we didn't have a guest for you folks, and I know this was in the weeds, but sometimes you need to go in the weeds to figure out what the lawn should look like overall.
and in the description of this show, we're going to actually have a copy of the actual report. So please,
Linked.
if you've listened,
Yeah, go,
if yeah,
and folks,
please read it.
read the report.
It's not a long read. It
No, it's
does
not
get
600 pages. It's three or
it
four.
yeah, it does get in the weeds a little bit, but I think it's definitely worth your time. Um, and it's actually doing what government should do, which is it's analyzing itself, and it's a sobering look at what's going on out there and how your tax dollars, let me repeat that, your tax dollars. It's like when people say, well,
Your
I don't,
tax dollars paid for this report.
right. When people say, well, I don't do politics, well, guess what? Your tax dollars are going to do politics whether you do them or not. So
Never
do with
heard
that
that.
what
It's
you will,
beautiful. I've been
you
doing
know?
this a long time and never heard that.
You don't you've been dragged, you're getting dragged whether you like it or not. So, as always, we really appreciate you joining us. If you have not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Don't you
Right.
want
Click
more?
subscribe, hit
Don't you
like, do
want
one of those things.
don't you
Do all
want
those
more?
things.
Don't you want more of the silver fox with the best head of hair in small business? Don't
I'm
you want
trying. I'm
small
growing it out
biz,
for
bigger?
you, people, for you.
Listen, we may get him to hippie linked at some point.
No, no,
My
the
lips to
problem with
God's
my
ears.
hair is multifaceted, but the biggest problem is it does not adhere to the laws of physics.
Okay. Well, yeah. Okay. That's going to have to be another show because we're talking physics and first.
I mean,
Okay.
it goes up.
Okay.
I thought physics said that
But what goes up
Newton
must
must
come
come
down.
down. Indeed.
As always, we ask you all to, you know what? Be good, be better, be best. Thank you for joining us. And make sure you check the show notes, read the report. It's only going to help.
Thanks,
Say goodbye,
everyone.
Charlie. Say goodnight, Gracie.
Bye, Gracie. Thanks, everybody. Jim, great being